We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Nicole Byer, helping you make those rooms flyer. Today's style tip: when it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild! Like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Ooh, fierce! This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip: when it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Welcome to Ghostly.
Is the abandoned village of Bara-Hack in Connecticut haunted?
Ghostly is your bi-weekly dose of the paranormal. We unearth chilling ghost stories and examine the evidence with a critical eye. Rebecca hunts down the legends while I, your friendly neighborhood skeptic, poke holes in her theories. In the end, you the listener get to decide, is it genuine haunting or just entirely nonsense? Click the subscribe or follow button to always be in the loop of new spooky tales. And as always, we're your host. I'm Pat.
And I'm Rebecca. And I'm entirely nonsense. That's going
Well, it could
really
be some degree in the middle, though, too, you know?
Yes.
I mean, okay, let's be fair. None of these are totally nonsense because they have to do with real places and real people.
Yes.
At some point, they were real.
Yes.
They're no longer, though, but I mean, yeah. All right, so we're going to be talking about, this is just in the woods, right?
Yeah, it's runes in the woods.
Runes in the woods. Sounds like Bachelor's Grove to me.
It does, and to me, the pictures give it very much a similar feel
yeah.
of that. And I am also going to put this disclaimer here right at the beginning.
Disclaimer.
It is private property.
Yes.
Do not go and visit this place without permission.
Yes, yes.
The neighbors are watching.
Yeah.
Supposedly there's cameras, all sorts of things. I went down a rabbit hole of a website where people were arguing of like, this shouldn't be private. Of course it's private, but it shouldn't be. You know, there's a lot of debate out there, but we Ghostly are firmly on the side of this is private property. Yeah. You can see plenty of nice videos and images online.
I mean, absolutely. And if you have permission, if you don't have permission and you choose to go there anyways, be really respectful of your surroundings, be really respectful of the place. I don't think you should go there without permission, but if you choose to do so, please still be respectful though.
And we're upset at you for doing that.
I'm not upset with them.
I am. It's not, I don't want anyone getting in trouble or us getting in trouble.
Right.
But it's a really a really interesting place. We don't have many places like this, I feel like, in the United States.
Yes. Now, I don't often do this, but I do want to give a shout out to another podcast, one that really brought this into more the light, I guess. And that's Astonishing Legends podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've heard of Astonishing Legends. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a popular podcast dedicated to strange and unusual phenomenon. Featured a detailed episode about the history and legends of Bara-Hack in March of 2021, although I can't find it anymore.
Oh,
I remember listening to it back in the day, though.
Gotcha.
This brought the story of the abandoned village to a wider audience interested in paranormal.
Yeah.
So we might not even be talking about this. There are some shows that have covered it, like some of the ghost shows and stuff like that. But I didn't see which ones actually did. So some of the paranormal shows.
I couldn't find any of the big ones, or they didn't show up in my research. Doesn't mean they didn't. But there's definitely been paranormal investigators that have gone there. And not just recently, back in the day. We're going to talk about some of the things that investigators found. So. All
right. So, I hope you guys are ready for a spooky episode, as being in the woods all by yourself typically is spooky. So
yes,
this is the time when we would do a shout out on Ghostly. There's 2 ways to get a shout out. You can leave us a review on Apple Podcast, or you can also become a member on Patreon. Just go to ghostlypodcast.com and click on Patreon in the menu bar. We have a lot of different tiers to choose from. Some of them make them ad-free, and they're reasonable.
Absolutely.
We just got to make $1 or $2, to
helps us
pay some bills around here.
You bet.
And they're all ghostly bills. They're not Pat coffee bills.
Yeah, no, they are not. No. These are all to help keep the podcast going.
So Rebecca, we do have a review here.
We do.
On Apple Podcast. Rebecca, would you read that for us?
Sure. The headline is so fun and interesting. It is 5 stars, and the username is Bryguy 2000 Bodine Cuquette.
Yeah. I don't know what all that means, but I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. All right. So he says, or she, I'm not going to assume.
Well, guy. I don't know.
But I assume.
Yeah.
But I don't want to assume. All right. OM Gosh. Love that. OM Gosh. This is the best podcast I've come across in a long time.
Aww.
The ghost stories are so very interesting and well researched. The interaction between the hosts is fun too. They demonstrate how to disagree respectfully and listen to an opinion other than your own. Looking forward to many more episodes.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Bryguy or Bree Guy, or maybe.
Well, that's true.
Maybe just really into cheese or something.
We don't know. But we appreciate it. That is what we hope to demonstrate with this show. So
absolutely. Yeah. That is the secret mission of Ghostly, is to show you that you could disagree with
secret
people.
other mission on top of hopefully being entertaining. Now this is also the time where we would do listener mail.
Yes.
We don't have any listener mail this episode, but we would love to hear some stories from you, whether they're paranormal things that happened to you that you're just not sure what happened, or to a family member.
Or I would like to say, if you've been to Bara-Hack or any of the locations that we've done an episode on, and you want to tell us about your experience there, it doesn't even have to be paranormal. It could just be that you were there,
and what did you see?
Really liked the bellhop at the hotel or something. Who knows? Just write it in, and we'd love to read it and give you some cred.
Absolutely. And you can.
It's all about the cred, right?
It is all about the cred. You can send us those stories via email, info@ghostlypodcast.com, or use the contact us form on ghostlypodcast.com.
Yeah, or you can always send it in the mail too. We always like to actually get it in the physical mail. So that's P.O. Box number 264, Geneva, Illinois 60134. I am not one that writes down stuff when I'm listening to it. Although I do carry a notebook now with me every day.
There you go.
So that I could, but I don't do it. So go to the footer on ghostlypodcast.com, and it's all written right there too.
Absolutely. Or you can, of course, reach out to us via social media at Ghostly Podcast.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, before we move on to our episode today, we have one more thing, of course, we need to talk about. Your favorite part.
Oh, about holidays and stuff, right?
No. We got to talk about the polls.
Oh, we don't have to talk about them.
So our last episode, we talked about Aaron Burr.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
In the room where it happened.
Was he?
Sir?
Was he in the room where it happened?
According to our listeners, he was.
Oh, no.
Yes, 52%.
Oh, my
no,
God.
48%. I am actually very surprised at this result.
That is really close.
Yeah.
I think one vote could have changed that whole thing.
The vote can be close.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what was our overall rating?
Yeah, they can give ratings like we do, as you're going to see when we talk about each piece of evidence and the overall evidence. They gave a 4.1 because they can't give 0. So,
it shifts up a little. is what we're saying.
Yeah. It goes up a little tiny bit. So maybe this would be like a 3.8 out of 10.
Yeah,
or something.
something
but
like that.
4.1 is pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Let's get into a ghost story.
You have one?
I do.
All right.
Okay.
It's time for a spooky tale from Rebecca.
I wasn't supposed to go back. Years ago, when I was in college, a friend convinced me to hike out to an old ghost town in the Connecticut woods, Bara-Hack. I didn't know the name then. I just thought we were exploring ruins, maybe getting a little creeped out for fun. But the second we stepped into the forest, everything changed. It was too quiet. No wind, no birds, just silence, like the world had been paused. We saw crumbling stone walls, mossy foundations, and the twisted remains of a cemetery. Then, just as we were leaving, I heard it. A child laughing, faint, like it was coming from behind the trees. Then, the unmistakable squeak of an old carriage wheel. My friend swore he heard someone humming, soft and sweet, just over his shoulder. That night, I dreamed I was back in the woods. But I wasn't dreaming. I never closed my eyes. I just saw it. The baby in the tree, the bearded face hovering over a wall. I could hear mothers crying out, voices rising from the ground. I left Bara-Hack, but sometimes I wonder if it will ever let me go.
Wow. So how much of that is based on actual evidence?
It's kind of like all of the evidence into the story.
All of it into one.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about each one of those things.
Let's just get this straight, though, so people don't vote on it based upon your ghost story here.
Mm-hmm.
This is not one person going through all of these. These are several people that might have seen one thing at a time.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Because sometimes people think that, oh my God, one person had this whole experience? That was awful. Yeah. So we just do that for dramatic effect.
There you go. Yes.
All right. So we're going to take a short break. And when we return, we're going to get to the history.
Facts. From a skeptic point of view. Facts. Keep presenting all to you. Facts.
All right. So you ready for the Pat Facts?
Pat Facts.
All right. So this place has been around forever.
Forever. I mean, as far as America's concerned.
Yeah. Well, it was around before that.
That is true.
I would venture to say that this location has been around since the Earth.
I mean, I guess. I don't know the forming of the tectonic plates and all that. I don't know the total history. Was it on the sometimes the geography lessons, they're in there. In there. I just don't remember.
Well, this
them
is
all.
Connecticut. This isn't like, over by Alaska or something like that.
So,
I think this place was there forever.
Okay.
I really do.
All right.
All right. Families, most notably those with the surname of Barrows, began to settle on the hillside in Pomfret, Connecticut. This was in the late 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
This marks the likely beginning of the small scattered community that would become known as Bara-Hack. Bara likely derives from the Barrows family name, so it's probably Bara.
Now, I have also heard that it means something in like
German
Irish or something like that. So,
Gaelic?
Yeah,
not Irish, Gaelic probably.
Well, let me do the research,
research.
And then you keep going.
So in the 1800s, Bara-Hack functions as a small, relatively isolated agricultural community. Residents likely engage in substances, farming, and maintain a degree of self-sufficiency. Records of this period are scarce, suggesting a quiet existence, but they were there. Possible origins of hack. Theories about the hack portion of the name circulate. It could stem from a Native American term for a clearing or a piece of land, or it might have been a colloquial term describing the rough terrain.
Oh, interesting. So supposedly the name Bara-Hack translates to breaking of bread in Welsh.
In Welsh, okay.
That was, yes, the difference.
All right.
So I think it sounds like, in fact, a lot with the history of this place.
Yeah.
Is
a lot of this is left up to whoever's interpreting it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we don't have much because they were a small community and there wasn't much that happened during that time.
Right.
In the mid to late 1800s, the Industrial Revolution hit, right? It gained momentum in other parts of Connecticut and New England in general. Opportunities for work in factories and more established towns in the valleys begin to draw younger generations away from the challenging agricultural life on the hill. So that could be one of the reasons why a lot of the people left there is because, they got jobs.
Which I think a lot of that is something that we still talk about today, right? There's a lot of little towns out there that the kids leave and they don't come back.
Yeah, absolutely. So as younger residents leave, the population of Bara-Hack slowly dwindles, farming becomes more difficult with a shrinking workforce, and the isolation of the community becomes more pronounced. It's one of those kind of things, too. You don't know where communities are going to pop up and where they're not going to pop up. So this could have been an early Chicago or an early New York, but it just wasn't. It didn't win that lottery then, I guess.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go from the late 1800s to early 1900s. The last families residing in Bara-Hack eventually leave. The exact reason for their departure remain largely unknown, fueling local legends and speculation. Factors likely include economic hardship, the lure of easier living elsewhere, and potentially other unrecorded events. And I'm sure you're going to capitalize on the unrecorded events. With no inhabitants to maintain the home and fields, the buildings begin to decay and collapse. The surrounding forest gradually encroaches upon the cleared land, obscuring the former village that was once there. So in the 20th century to the present, Bara-Hack becomes known as an abandoned or a ghost village. So making it even more appealing for people to want to go there and see, because, when you say ghost, they think, well, there has to be a ghost there then. Stories of paranormal activity, strange occurrences, and tragic events associated with Bara-Hack begin to circulate and persist in local folklore, adding to its mystique. The site attracts attention from local historians and those interested in the history of rural New England settlements and their decline. However, due to the lack of extensive documentation, much of its history remains speculative.
Yeah.
And in present day, Bara-Hack remains as an abandoned site in the woods of Pomfret. It serves as a reminder of the challenges faced by early rural communities and the ever-changing landscape of life in New England. Visitors can still explore the remains of the village, pondering the lives of those who once called it home, but you want to get permission, as Rebecca said.
Yeah, and I guess
be respectful.
You bet. And I think for a while it was more open.
Okay, so do you have anything to add to this?
So the only thing I'll add is that the original first, I don't know if it was the first family, but they often are cited as people that helped to found it, is Obadiah Higginbotham.
Okay.
And Jonathan Randall. I don't know if those are two men or a couple. I don't know.
Okay.
But they will come up, or Randall at least will come up with some of the paranormal pieces. So I just
Okay.
wanted to mention them. And I did also I read a little bit about...
You heard tell of it?
Yeah, I heard tell. Definitely the Civil War also played a part in kind of pulling people away from it.
Definitely.
I think you're right. Definitely more the Industrial Revolution and the economic issues and things like that. But it didn't necessarily... I guess I'll say, there wasn't necessarily just one thing.
Yeah,
you know.
there was multiple.
Yeah.
I mean, and there is reasons that we don't know of, and we never will, and it doesn't mean those are supernatural. Just so we put it out there.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we're going to get to the debate. All right, it's time for a debate, Rebecca.
It is. So first of all, just to go back, as you mentioned that this is an abandoned site and, it's not been preserved.
Yes.
A lot of times we talk about things that are older, but they've now become a museum or they've now become a whatever. And that is not this place. It's stones covered in moss and trees and...
Which moss can be really slippery.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why the people that own this land don't want people to go there unless they're invited in there because, there could be a lawsuit. You could sue somebody if you slip and fall on their property. So you got to be really careful.
Absolutely. And then also people sometimes will oh, I'm going to take a stone from this or, whatever. And again, then all of a sudden, this place is not doing well. And then the other piece is there is a cemetery, and that is definitely what reminds me of
Bachelor's
Grove, because it's not a super maintained
And
cemetery.
If you haven't listened to our Bachelor's Grove episodes, we have a couple in the beginning. It's still one of our favorites because, it's one of the most haunted places in the world, if not just Chicago. So.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's start. So the first one that was mentioned in the story was the ghost baby in the tree. And so this is going back to when people lived there. So this is a story that's been passed down. That was a ghost story from the time. I mentioned Randall. And, it's interesting. Sometimes this story is shared as the servants of the Randall family, but most sources now will say, no, the slaves of the Randall family, because as much as we don't like to think of Northerners having slaves, no, they did,
especially early on in the 1700s and stuff. Yeah.
So, anyway, so one of the earliest, most persistent hauntings comes from former slaves and again, they were slaves at the time, or maybe they had just gotten their freedom by, again, we don't have a year, but who reported seeing a baby reclining in the branches of an elm tree in the cemetery. And this apparition continued to be seen long after the town was abandoned by visitors with no prior knowledge of the original tale. The identity of the child remains unknown, but its eerie presence has become central to Bara-Hack's legend.
Okay. Do we have any pictures of it or anything?
No, not of the baby.
Okay. So, I don't know what it can be. It can be it can be like an owl. It could be some other kind of thing that would be the shape of a baby that's up in the tree that they, owls sleep. They tend to sleep. It could be a dead animal. It could be a bunch of other things. I don't know. It doesn't mean it has to be something, though. A lot of times, too, just being in this kind of area can make you feel this way, like, ooh, there's something scary there. And, yeah. So I'm just going to say it doesn't have to be just because they see something up in a tree. Even if they did see something, doesn't have to be something necessarily haunted. It could be something that was once living and might have died in the tree or something like that. Could be a raccoon. I don't know if they climb up trees. It could be.
Well, I mean, I would hope that people that lived at this time and this was their area would know the difference of what they're seeing.
But what if it's up really far and they can't tell? And what if they can only see this from a distance? So you're not giving me enough information to be able to say that this is that. Oh yeah, they could clearly see right up above them, 2 feet in front of them, that it is this. So I'm going to have to assume that it is pretty far away. And I mean, I can't go over all the possible scenarios. So I'm just going to have to say, I would probably imagine this is something that's real, that's there. It's something physical that's there, not something
not
supernatural.
A baby.
No. How would the baby get in the tree?
Well,
how would the ghost baby?
I think that's why they assume it was a ghost, because obviously no one was like, that's my baby up there, like there was.
But why would there be a ghost baby in the tree though?
I don't know. It's hanging out, watching over things. I don't know.
and the way you said it, like reclining too.
That's an odd word choice. I don't know why that's mentioned.
Aren't babies always reclining?
Well, I mean, I think that's probably part of it. So
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a 0 on this one.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with a 6, I think. With
6,
this one,
you think?
because it's older. Like I part of me wants to do a 7, but because this is such an old ghost story, and we don't know over time what details have gotten changed from it, I'll give it a 6. I think it's likely, but
But yeah, your 6 means that this might not be real at all. I just have an inkling about something.
Well, I think inkling is not a strong enough word. It's a little bit more than that.
Okay. But you have nothing you're going on, though. It's not like this is actual concrete physical evidence that
I'm just not going to call them liars. I think that it's possible.
I didn't call him a liar either.
No, you just thought they were mistaken.
Yes, I still do.
Yes. All right, let's go with the next one.
Okay.
And, okay. So this is just funny because for those that are audio listeners and haven't seen us on social media or at an event or anything, Pat is a bearded man.
Yeah, they call me a beardo.
He's a beardo. And so this is the bearded face in the air.
Okay. I can feel it calling in the bearded air. The bearded face in the air.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, okay. So this is during 1971, a paranormal investigation. A group of students led by Paul Eno reportedly witnessed the face of a bearded man suspended in midair above the Western Cemetery wall. Now, supposedly, this image, what they saw, lingered for over 7 minutes, long enough to leave a lasting impression and become one of Bara-Hack's most talked about spectral sightings.
But has not been seen since.
Not that I could find. I will say there's I did not even send this to you, okay? Because that is how what? There is a photo, not from this. Like no one claims that it's from this time, 71. But later on, somebody took a photo of the cemetery, and the only thing I saw was they were like, this is someone was like, this is one of the craziest paranormal photos I've ever seen. But I looked at it and I couldn't really, I was like, what is paranormal? Like, what is this? What are they seeing? And then I noticed in one area, it was like someone superimposed, a shadowed version of almost like a smiley face, like an emoji smiley face,
nice.
with a beard. But like it's very clearly not a human
Okay.
face. It's like it's very clearly an emoji
But
face,
what I'm
like
picturing
a watermark.
what I'm picturing here is like Mufasa.
Not even.
Like no, but that's what I'm picturing
and
when
like
you
from
say
the
that.
71.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I think
It's the Lion King. That's what you're telling me.
Well, it's a bearded man.
I know, but it's like a cloud formation of that particular
I
thing.
see.
You know?
I see. I don't know. It's like I guess midair above the Western Cemetery wall. So
Well, I would like to invite Paul Eno onto the show to talk about his bearded face in the air and find out if it's me.
oh, okay.
Even though I wasn't born yet.
Okay.
But, it could have been me. I mean, who knows?
I don't know if he's still around, but
maybe that was a premonition that I'm going to do this episode and win.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, no, I'm going to have to go 0 on this one. One guy saw it in 70s.
No, not just one guy.
Okay.
There was a group of students led by him. They all saw it.
Yeah. And this is before they had like cell phones, so they couldn't take pictures.
They didn't have,
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. Just one particular instance. It could have been a cloud formation. It could have been something else. So I'm gonna
on the ground.
Well, it says in the air.
Yeah, but I mean like midair, like not like in the sky.
Well, it could be smoke.
Okay.
I don't know. It could be leaves. It could be a bunch of things.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
like the Green Man. Have you heard of the Green Man?
No, I don't
He's
think
he's
so.
a god in
Okay.
pagan beliefs, and oftentimes people have now depicted him and put him into trees and stuff like that, where it's like it looks like Game of Thrones ish kind of thing, where they had the faces in the trees.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna give this one an 8. We got a lot of
Okay.
witnesses and people that put that out there.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what we all saw.
I'm gonna go 0. So
Okay.
okay.
Next one. This is a very common reporting. It's also Bara-Hack is also known as the Village of Lost Voices.
Mhm.
So very famous for disembodied sounds of long gone inhabitants. So multiple witnesses have reported hearing mothers calling their children, children laughing, dogs barking, cows, wagon wheels rumbling, like basically like the old village sounds, and even old songs. Someone, talked, and I read this one, about hearing music, but they went and they couldn't find anybody singing or anything. Professor Odell Shepherd.
Odell?
Odell. No.
Oh, okay.
I just
Odell.
was struggling with
I was like, the guy's name is Odell? That is a weird name there.
I was just, Rebecca.
Okay.
Professor Odell Shepherd
Okay.
described in 1927, it's as if sounds there can pierce that mysterious soundproof wall that we call time. And again, there's a firsthand account of a woman reportedly hearing a woman singing and baby carriage wheels squeaking, who later then experienced visions of the forest at night when she went home without even closing her eyes. It just like came to her mind.
Okay.
After hearing these voices. So lots of sounds while you're there. Like, so people will say like when you go in, it's really quiet, which we'll talk more about later, but then it's like these old timey sounds.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to say that, and you're going to probably laugh at this, I'm assuming, but I'm going to say that sounds attributed to ghost or unexplained sources could easily be like calls of nocturnal animals. The creaking of old trees, or even echoes playing tricks in the uneven terrain and the ruins that are there. I think that oftentimes when you hear these sounds in the woods, it could be animals. It could easily just be an animal. And I have been mistaken by some of these sounds. I remember when I went to England and there were sheep, and I had never heard sheep sound the way that they did there. It was different. It sounded like they were talking. It sounded like people talking.
Oh, they didn't say bah.
No, they went like, mum.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how it sounded. It was really weird. It was really weird. And I thought it was people like arguing, and I thought it was like a fight going on or something like that. And seriously, until I got closer and saw that it was literally just these sheep. Yeah.
I mean, here's where I'm of two minds, right? Because I do think like hearing dogs or cows, I mean, like that definitely could just be like animals in the area or whatever. And I even think maybe mother calling their child, like if you just hear like a high-pitched voice calling, that could be a bird. You know, even like the children laughing, I think can be more distinct, but could maybe there's some local animal. I'd love if anyone lives in the area to let us know. But wagon wheels rumbling and then actual
That's creaking
music.
of old trees. Remember when we were in Bachelor's Grove, we heard those trees creaking, and that sounded like something insane.
Yeah, because it was.
You
it
would
was
not think it was trees. But it was.
I do not.
I've played it for a lot of people, and they have said, no, that is the trees.
They weren't there.
but they could hear it
creepy.
though. We have audio of it in our Bachelor's Grove episode, so you can hear it yourself. You can
go back and listen yourselves. Yes.
Okay. Also, I'm going to say that.
Well, just really quick, the singing though and the music, I think is very different.
Yeah, but that could be birds singing as well.
I think that's not. They would know that.
But just think of it. This is called a ghost village. It's not called a ghost village because there's necessarily ghosts there. When you talk about a ghost town, you're not talking about it because there's actual ghosts there. You're talking about it because no one lives there anymore. But it gives you that feeling, right, of, man, this place has got to be haunted then. You know, they have a strong presence in folklore and popular culture. Our minds are just primed to associate such places with mystery and the supernatural before you even do anything there. Bara-Hack might simply just be fitting into the pre-existing narrative that it is this ghost village rather than possessing genuine, unique paranormal activity.
Or, I mean, the other piece for me is like, to me, this is very much a feel of energy stays in a place. And that you know, the wall sometimes is a bit thin, especially in a place that's kind of abandoned. And so people might be hearing things as they were when there were more people and more activity there.
So that sounds more logical to you than assuming that it's an animal or of some kind.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like any individual one of these, it's possible that it could have been, you know, an animal, but some of these, they don't like, again, I don't want, like, I think most people are logical. I mean, again, if they're there as part of a paranormal investigation, I suppose, you know, sometimes you're more primed for that. But I mean, I've been on paranormal investigations and I feel like I can differentiate when something is paranormal versus like, well, that's just like a radio playing somewhere, or that's like a bird calling. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. But what I'm going to say too is also that you're coming into a situation that you're not used to. Most people don't live out in the woods in the middle of nowhere. Most people live in towns. Most people live in cities. Most people live in more urban-ish areas where this is totally rural areas. So they are not accustomed to the sounds that they would hear out in that area. We are not accustomed to the sound. So if we went out there, we could easily hear that. I bring up the time that we were at Nick's house and we heard somebody clearly say hello.
Yeah, because we did. That was so creepy. I'm still not. I'm sorry.
It wasn't somebody, it was an animal or something.
No animal went, hello. And it didn't even sound like that. It sounded like our friend, another friend of ours who was not there saying hello.
She
like
was
so
there,
much...
but she was back at the party.
But she was not around there and it definitely sounded like her.
Okay.
Anyways, so what's your vote?
0.
Okay. My rating for this one is 7.
Okay.
Okay. 2 more here.
Yes.
So now, just to get to some reasoning here, there is a legend, about the land being cursed. Okay. So that supposedly it's a retaliation by the displaced Nipmuc, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, people, because obviously this land was not unoccupied when the the white man came to settle it, right? So supposedly the native people would chant and howl in the woods to frighten the settlers away, but eventually they were, kind of forced out. And so modern day investigators will talk about the emotional shifts that they feel in the area. And that's, again, supposedly there's this curse by the Nipmuc people. And then there is one particular story that they attribute to this, is that a student was reportedly frozen on the trail, physically unable to move to the cemetery. Like they were walking and then all of a sudden they were frozen and they couldn't move. Now, there's also a thing about someone's hat being pulled off and pulled into a tree, but that just sounds like the tree caught the hat. I'm not going to go with that one, but we'll go with it was a weird story.
Wait, you mean it wasn't an event?
Yeah. But I do think there's a weird story about someone feeling frozen on the trail. But
okay.
But anyways, they say it's because of this curse.
Okay.
So.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reports of people feeling that uneasy feeling in woods.
The uneasy,
But in woods in general.
Sure.
It could easily be attributed to the isolation, the dense tree cover blocking out sunlight, the rustling of leaves and wind sounds like whispers sometimes, or even just the power of suggestion when you know you're in that ghost village. Our brains are wired to find these like patterns and can easily misinterpret natural sounds and shadows in a spooky setting. And then mixed in with that, you have the lack of concrete historical records for Bara-Hack. I mean, my complete history, I felt so weird doing it because I usually will give pat facts. These are pat maybes.
Yeah, very true.
So,
there's not a lot of documentation.
But it leaves a lot of room for speculation. The stories of tragedy or sudden abandonment might be exaggerations or misinterpretations, and the stories of Native Americans there could be the same too. It doesn't mean when we occupied what we now call the United States, it doesn't mean that every ounce of land was being taken by Native Americans at that moment. So it could be just this particular area, just a natural decline of a rural community. People moved away for practical reasons, better economic opportunities, changing agricultural practices, not necessarily because of any dramatic event, but I think people get this idea in their head that, wow, why did these people leave this area? And they get fixated on this. I think that that's what happened to this kid. I think he got fixated on that uneasy feeling being in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and then also got caught up in the story. I mean, eventually he was able to move, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that means he probably could have moved before.
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing.
If they didn't have to give him drugs or like an IV or do some kind of operation to make him move then after that, I'm thinking that he probably could have moved. He just didn't move.
Well, my guess is he couldn't. He felt stuck because of the, the energy there. And it's hard for me because I don't know if there's enough evidence about a curse. It's like why this village being abandoned versus another. It definitely was a slow decline. I mean, I don't think this isn't like Roanoke where it was like they all were missing the next day, but again, I still think there is some, whatever it was, this town just couldn't get itself together.
Well, I can't either. But that doesn't mean I'm haunting people.
Well, you never know down the road. All right. So what's your rating here?
I'm going to have to go 0 because there's nothing that stands out to me that says, oh, well, this guy had this happen. That means that he couldn't move. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go 5 on this one.
Okay.
I'm a little in the middle on this one.
So this is probably the least of your evidence for you so far.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So I feel a little bit better now because I'm like, I feel weird given this such a low score, but it's like, I don't feel that there's anything with that. So, okay.
All right. Lastly is to talk about, it's really two things. I know you don't like me to put two things in there, but I just have to. There is, as much as we talked about it being the village of voices, the other thing we hear a lot about is the village of silence.
Yeah.
That people feel like when they first get there, that it is odd. There is no sound of birds, no sound of wind, no sound of cracking trees. Like it's really, really quiet.
Yeah.
And then there's also a lot of times they say they see orbs or streaks of light taken in photos or just seeing it near the cemetery.
Well, you know I love those orbs. So.
I know. What's your favorite?
Orbs in photos can be just dust on the camera lens. It could be bugs. It could be other things. Also, the things that you see sometimes, if you've never seen a lightning bug or firefly, that it would be, picture you had never seen that in your life. And then all of a sudden you see some outside and you're a distance away. That would be really freaky, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think I'd think of it as an orb, but yeah.
I would. Mm-hmm. These are orbs of light. But I'm also going to say, something that we need to take into account too is that this was a community. So they staked out land in this particular forested area, and they cut away pieces of land for themselves. And when you do that, sometimes it changes how nature is going to respond to that particular area. Things might not grow the same way. So there might not be as many trees in that area. There might not be as many other things in that area, leading to no bird sounds or anything like that when you just heard bird sounds a little bit ago because you were outside where that community was. Also, the crumbling foundations and stone walls are simply the result of natural processes of decay and weathering over a century or more of being abandoned. And, I know we had talked about the moss and stuff like that. Moss seems creepy sometimes. But there's nothing inherently spooky about old stones being covered in moss and vines. That's nature.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's claimed.
Oh, there are claims out there.
Oh, okay.
That is one that I found accidentally because I don't look for the ghost stuff. I just look for the history, which is hard.
No,
to find
I don't think there's any to me. I didn't see any evidence of there being anything paranormal about how it's decayed.
Okay, well, I don't think the lack of sound, especially when we talked about this is the land of whispering, and then now it's the lack of quiet, the land of quiet. It's like, it's both then, and that means it's the same as every other place in the world. It has voices, it doesn't have voices. It has whispers, it doesn't have whispers. We're basically negating our own previous evidence by this.
Well,
one.
I think you are. I don't think I
Okay,
am.
well then if I negated it, then I did my job. So I'm going to have to go 0 on this one.
I'm gonna go 8 on this one. It creeps me out, the idea of the silence.
So,
not necessarily the orb so much, but the silence.
So what is your overall rating then?
So my overall rating for this place is going to be a 7.
Okay, that's pretty high.
Yeah, it is pretty high. Yeah, I think it's definitely kind of a creepy vibe place. So
creepy vibe place.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go 0 because
Okay.
I gave nothing but 0. So
Nothing but
that brings
zeros.
us to the closing arguments. This is our last chance to convince you, the listener, to vote our way. We are each given 1 minute of uninterrupted time, and we will time each other on the Ghostly Studio timer because not everyone was able to keep it honest prior to this.
Hey.
I didn't say you.
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling guilty.
Mm-hmm.
I think you protest too much. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
And we all know how this goes. You're going to hear a timer to count you in.
Yes.
And then also that timer would count you out if you go all the way to the minute.
Sounds good.
Ready?
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think that the Bara-Hack abandoned village has definitely got some creepy paranormal energy going on. I don't necessarily get any feeling that it is malicious, but the fact that there are stories coming from when the people lived there, and then have continued since then. They've gotten maybe less dramatic, right? From the baby and the face, now it's more creepy sounds. I do think that, and actually, I think the fact of there being unnatural silence, and then hearing it's this idea of, so you come in and there's nothing, and then all of a sudden you hear wagon wheels and you hear people talking and babies crying, and voices. I do think that sometimes when people visit this place, they're traveling back in time.
All right. Well, you made it the whole minute, so we got to show off our ghostly timer then.
Yes.
All right. I am ready, and go. Despite these stories, there's typically a lack of credibility, verifiable evidence of actual paranormal events at Bara-Hack. Most accounts are anecdotal or subjective, relying on feelings and interpretations rather than objective proof like consistent documented phenomenon. For me, the mystery of Bara-Hack is not in the is it haunted? The real mystery is understanding the social and the economic forces that led to its abandonment and how those empty foundations became fertile grounds for these ghost stories. Why? Why did people start telling ghost stories about this? That to me is more the story than anything else, and it does not support that there are ghosts. So that's it for me.
Okay. You had 10 seconds left when you
Yeah.
stopped there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't let your friends miss out on the chills. Share Ghostly with them and help us grow this community of paranormal enthusiasts. Your support means the world to us. Shout out to our VIP producers who make this all possible. We have Andrew,
Alicia,
Becky,
Cindy,
Kevin,
Jessica,
Alice.
and Aaron.
Is it real? You be the judge. Share your verdict at ghostlypodcast.com poll section and let the debate continue. Subscribe to Ghostly now and get ready for more spine-tingling encounters with the unknown.
Ooh, all right. On the next episode of Ghostly, we're going to finally leave the Northeast because we've been spending some time there.
We have.
And now we're going to go to Texas.
Oh,
we're going to
Texas,
talk
okay.
about the Menger Hotel in
Ooh.
San Antonio, Texas.
And everything is bigger in Texas,
That's
right?
what they say. So the ghosts, I'm guessing
So we're
they're
talking about huge ghosts then.
huge ghosts. Or a
Okay.
large number of ghosts?
No. They have to be big ghosts.
Oh, I
That's what
see.
I'm expecting to see
Okay,
here.
all right.
With really big belt buckles, too.
And hats.
And hats. Yeah, you got to
Yes.
have the hats, too.
And it comes out on May 21st.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody has a great couple of weeks. And until we talk to you again, stay ghostly.
Bye.